All these videos were on my music channel. However, I want my music channel to be just for my music, so I'm kind of transferring the ghost sections and the creepy stories over here to this channel so I could have just music on my other channel.
We're doing ghost stories at 3 a.m. in my mother's car outside, not in the garage. Okay, so here's some backstories about me. If you haven't heard my song, The Third Eye, where I blatantly say that I see spirits, I do! I'm gonna take off my glasses so you guys can actually see my face. Yeah, I see spirits, and that's been an adventure. I've always seen spirits, but like with most little kids, they kind of stop like seeing spirits. Well, when I was 12 years old, we lived in a extremely haunted home, notoriously haunted home. My mother's been associated with that house ever since she was 8 years old. She moved in with her family, and my grandma owns that house. So everyone in the family has been in and out. Actually, my uncle lives in that house right now. But in that house, I started seeing ghosts again, and it was completely traumatizing. I have more songs coming about my story about that, but right now, we're going to be talking about one of my ghost stories of actually before I started seeing ghosts a lot, because that house was very haunted. Like, I didn't need to see ghosts there. This house is very old. It was built in 1906, I think, according to my grandma. And it was the first house built in that neighborhood. And honestly, I feel like the whole land is kind of cursed. And that neighborhood is actually the most crime-filled neighborhood, or used to be the most crime-filled neighborhood in Nampa. While we were living there, actually, the news came over and interviewed my dad while my brother and sister and him were doing yard work, talking about how it's like being the most crime-ridden neighborhood. And I have so many stories on actual, like, genuine people being creepy as frick. Anyway, so there was so obviously a mimic in that house. It could mimic our looks. And if you guys don't know what a mimic is, mimics are being very popular on TikTok right now, on the spooky side of TikTok, because they could copy your looks. Usually you don't see their faces, but this one in our house, you could. And they also are very much so known for mimicking your voice. That's what they mainly do, is copying your loved ones' voices, or even yours. When I was probably 8 years old, I was going to bed, and in our room, we had a bunk bed. It was this huge, clinky, loud bunk bed, and my brother and sister slept on the bottom of the bed. I'm the oldest, so I got the luxury of being on the top bunk. Well, our bed was this way, and the window was straight across. And it was this pretty big window. We had these ugly lime green curtains, and the walls in this room was freaking blue. We were poor. We didn't have much money. We grabbed whatever we could get. I remember our mother was in the closet picking clothes for us for school the next day, because my mom's awesome. Shout out to my mom. She always did that when we were young. And I remember sitting, the wall here, the bed like this. I was sitting on the bunk bed like this, looking straight to the window. And I remember looking at my reflection and being like really creeped out with my own reflection in the window. I looked through the window, was this rickety clinkety, surprised it stayed up this long, wooden fence into our backyard. We had a really strange shaped backyard, so the fence was kind of close to the window. It looked like I was sitting on the fence, but then again, I was having my legs over the edge of the bunk bed, so I just thought maybe that was how my reflection looked, sitting on the bunk bed like that. I just still had a really creepy feeling. I was like, is this my reflection? So I remember raising my hand up. It rose its hand up, and then I raised my other hand up, put down the other hand up, it does that. And I raise both hands up, and it does that. But then I wave my hand, and it doesn't wave its hand back. I still get the chills. And more I remember is that in the moment, it was delayed. Like as if you're watching someone and purposely copying someone. So I didn't recognize the mistakes that this reflection was obviously doing until I waved my hand and it didn't wave back. When I realized that, it was like we made eye contact. And it smiled. Just not that type of smile. I freaked out. I put my head over the blankets. I put my pillow on top of my head that was over the blanket and squished it. I was really scared, and I remember peeking my head out from the pillow, like terrified, seeing this really I heard a really I remember freaking out and scared to look back at the window. But when I looked back at the window, it was gone. I didn't have a reflection at that window. It wasn't there. Yeah. I just remember so vividly the feeling. That's one of the many ghost stories. That is far from the scariest ghost story. If you like this, if you're actually here, round of applause to you. Thank you for actually giving a crap. Listen to my song, The Third Eye. It's pretty much everywhere. However, I'm still waiting for it to be on Pandora. I don't know why it's not on Pandora yet. I guess it's just loading, but it's on Spotify, Apple Music, it's on a bunch of other random streaming services, YouTube music, it's everywhere, except for Pandora. Listen to that, and show that you like this video, that this video is interesting, because I would love to tell more ghost stories. I have another idea for another video while we wait for me to make my next song.
But it's a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable, but is entirely true. I'll go first. When I was 8,
I just had a creepy experience that happened to me that is related to this trend. I've been watching this trend on repeat compilations because I'm fascinated by it. Hearing other people's stories because I've lived in an extremely haunted home when I was a little girl. Actually, made me start seeing spirits again. And when you start seeing spirits, you become a magnet to them. Your life becomes haunted. You can't go anywhere without ghosts. They're everywhere, and they will haunt you. Honestly, it feels kind of like a glitch of a matrix because this is oddly a very specific coincidence. I know I said that wrong. I watched a girl while I'm watching these videos. I had a very similar experience to me, and I'm like, dang, now I want to hop on this trend and say this. Here I am. And then I have this experience. I'm like, the universe wants me to tell this story. So I was 12 years old. I love music. I'm actually producing and singing music right now about me seeing ghosts. And when I was little, I had this really old, like 2000s, maybe even 90s radio that you could put a CD in it, and then you could turn on a radio and listen to music there. I never used the radio because it was in a station that was like super staticky. I think it was Spanish, and I didn't know how to change frequencies to one I know. My uncle would burn discs that I could listen to of songs that I liked, and then plus I bought CDs and that stuff. So I would dance in my room alone for hours listening to this radio. But we were really, really poor, so my parents was super strict on making sure I turned off the radio afterwards. This is important. I hated sleeping in this room. This room was so haunted, and it was nearly impossible to sleep in that room. I usually use the radio sometimes to listen to calming music to make sleep bearable. However, I tried not to because I was very insecure about it, and I don't know why, because now to this day, I listen to music sleeping and I don't give a crap. This night I was being brave and I was actually able to go into a deep sleep. However, I was awoken in the night by the Amber Alert noise, full blast going on this radio. I remember because even listening to this song without this situation being woken up in the middle of the night gives me goosebumps. So I remember pressing my head in the pillow and just screaming in terror while this thing goes on for, I think, longer than normal. And it didn't even say who was kidnapped or any detail. It was just playing that noise for no reason. All of a sudden, just static, just and Spanish. Somehow, the radio was cranked up to the max in the middle of the night and switched upward to the radio setting. Even if I left it on the other night, it would be at the bottom. So in the middle of the switch, it was off button. At the bottom was the CD, and at the top was the radio setting. And even if I accidentally went a notch up and put it on the radio, how the heck was it cranked up to the max? Logic isn't logicking. After I left, I booked it. I don't know if I was able to go back to the room and fall asleep again. It was a while ago. And I didn't even know what noise it was until the next day my cousins were over. I'm telling everyone this story, and they were like, was it the Amber Alert sound? And we were actually combining two noises. The purge noise, the purge, like, burr, burr, or the Amber Alert noise. It could have been a combination of that, or like
one or the other. So I want to wake up this afternoon, but I went to bed really late, so I'm sleeping in. I actually had alarms going to like wake me up, but I kept on clicking snooze and all this stuff. I think I accidentally clicked dismiss and there was an alarm going, but I was woken up today by an Amber Alert. And I had my phone right by my face because I kept on clicking snooze. So it was really loud. And at first, I thought it was my alarm, and then I realized it was an Amber Alert, and I was like, oh my gosh, no way this is happening right now. And the creepiest thing about this, I'm getting chills. Maybe I'm not. I feel like I am. The poor little girl that was missing was named Amber. But my phone pronounced it Ambry. Ambry is my name. That is how you say my name, Ambry. So it sounds like Ambry has been stolen. Oh man, I feel sick to my stomach. I have so much other scary stories, but this is the first thing I did today because what the heck? This is so undoubtedly what the heck? So creepy. I'm going to make more stories on this trend because I want to. I have actually scarier stories, but oh my gosh. Pray, be happy, be healthy. Bye. I cannot be the only one. Has anyone had a dream where you believe you were transported into another dimension or another world? I'll go first. The dimension I believe I was transported to was hell. Most dreams, they're dreams, you could tell they're dreams, but this one I still remember vividly to this day, which isn't very dreamy. This dream I felt very vivid, real pain, and another factor was it almost was like I was being shown this dream through the eyes of me, so it was like a found footage horror movie if I'm being real. The scariest part was that I could not wake up. No matter how hard I tried, I couldn't open my eyes, I couldn't open my mouth, I couldn't move. And I tried so hard, and it got even scarier when I almost completely stopped breathing. For most of the dream, I was barely retaining air. If there is a medical term for this, please tell me because it's terrifying. And I will explain more what it was like because it was really odd not being able to wake up from your dream. I was 12 years old, like when most of the crap that happened in my life happened. I was taking a nap on my couch. I was sleeping all the time. So I was sleeping on the couch when it was like I woke up from my dream in our living room, which was very dark. We had these velvet red curtains that took away most of the sunlight in our living room. And we had these huge windows, but it was like it was nighttime during the day. Most of the stream is very dreamlike, but my brother was in the room, and I remember getting very mad at him because he was talking in a very monotone voice. I was so mad at him. I was screaming in his face, "Shut up," and that stuff, and he wouldn't listen to me at all. It was like I wasn't there. And then the dread.
of like me not existing in the same realm that my family was in made me go into a huge panic. I started screaming and being like, Jerem, are you listening to me? And trying to touch him and him not comprehending me. That's my brother, if I didn't make that clear. And then I went to my mom, which was folding laundry in the laundry room, and I'm just screaming and crying, and at this point I want to wake up. And this is when I feel like I cannot wake up. I was trying to open my eyes, but my eyes were so heavy that I couldn't. And every time I felt like I was opening my eyes barely, I was still seeing the dream the same. And the same thing happened with my mouth. I was screaming in real life. I was trying to scream in real life. Help me! Help me! Wake me up! Help me! That was what I was doing and trying to say. And I was screaming that in my dream, but my mouth was not open in real life. So I could hear me screaming in my dream, but also hear me go, and I couldn't, and oh man, I still remember feeling completely hopeless, like no one in the world knew I existed, and that's what it felt like, completely alone, like my family forgot me, and that dread was just so terrible, and I couldn't wake up. Then this is when the dream came weird. Our neighbor dog, which was named Girlfriend, came into the living room, and my neighbor dog acknowledged me, was able to touch the neighbor dog, and it was very happy to see me, and I felt so much relief by this neighbor dog, and being like, oh my golly, I'm so glad you're here, oh my goodness, and that stuff. And then all of a sudden in front of me a vacuum just spawned like a Minecraft zombie and turned on by itself and started chasing me, and I remember it got me and this was the first pain I felt. It started sucking up my toes, which felt like, have you ever skidded, like got your foot scraped it across rough concrete? That's what it felt like. Having my toes vacuumed up felt like that. And eventually, this is like the one part I don't remember, was the vacuum machine stopping and somehow disappearing. All of a sudden, I noticed that the neighbor dog, Girlfriend, just completely got terrified, was like whimpering, tail between their legs, and I was like, what's wrong, Girlfriend? And she ran away, and I was like, no, now I'm alone again. And then behind me, I started hearing millions. It sounded like millions, so many screaming, just pure blood curdling screaming. And I turned around, it was like a black hole was opening up in the middle of my living room, and I remember running, but the hole got so big it started sucking me in, and I fall onto my stomach, and it felt like someone pulling me in to this black hole with a bunch of voices coming out, and I'm pretty sure I remember seeing just these shadow figures trying to climb out of this pitch black hole, and mist was surrounding it, and the mist was grabbing me and pulling me, and then I start screaming again, trying to wake up, and I couldn't, and this gets so extremely dramatized and dramatic, but we had hardwood floors, and I remember dragging my fingers on there, and so hard that my nails was ripping off, and it felt
it felt like I've never got my entire nail torn off, but it felt like it was. And they started bleeding on the floor, and the screaming was so loud. Blood was dripping down my face because my ears were actually bleeding, and I was dragged, and I remember looking back and the hole right there, and I go in it, and then all of a sudden it was like the lights were smashed out. Complete blackness. Blacker than I've ever seen before. Black. When you close your eyes, it was somehow blacker than that. Completely surrounded me. It was freezing cold. And death. Completely silent. A silence that made my heart race, and I could hear my heart race. It was so quiet. And then I heard this little girl go, welcome to hell. And then this, southern, rough man say, and it was, robotic too, say, you're gonna burn in hell, and just maniacally laughing. And the little girl starts laughing with him, and that was the only noise. And then finally, just randomly, I could wake up, and I sat up, and I was just what was that? Oh my gosh, what was that? And I immediately told my mom, please, if you're here, share your story too if you have a similar experience, because I still remember this to this day. It was terrifying. Bye.